I'm Jonathan Rose, CEO of Genesis Gold Group. As Americans, we work hard every day to provide for our families and ensure their future. But with the uncertainty facing our economy, it is more important than ever to safeguard your wealth and protect your retirement savings. Educated investors look to safe haven assets to shield themselves from the economic storm. Tangible assets like gold and silver can provide stability, security, and most importantly, peace of mind. In 1997, the Taxpayer Relief Act allowed Americans to hold physical precious metals like gold and silver in their IRAs for the first time. Today, Genesis Gold Group helps our clients transfer existing IRAs, 401ks, and other retirement accounts into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty free. With thousands of satisfied clients, 5-star reviews, and fully accredited with the Better Business Bureau, our experienced team is here to help you navigate the process. Start to finish, now is the time to educate yourself on the importance of a diversified portfolio, including tangible assets like gold and silver. Call now to receive our free wealth protection kit and digital dollar defense guide. Call now and we'll include our extremely popular silver prepper bar free when you open your account. Add it to your IRA or have it sent to your home. Call Genesis Gold Group today at 800-200-GOLD. Prepper bar only available through Genesis Gold Group.
You're listening to the J.D. Rucker Show. Let's begin. So I have a question for all of those men out there supporting Kamala Harris, so-called men. I know a lot of them are beta. Not all of them, though. Some of them are sort of alpha males, I guess, allegedly. When you've got a party where you have people like Barack Obama and Tim Walz and Doug Emhoff out there representing masculinity, of course, the vast majority are going to be beta males. But anyway, there are a lot of them. Apparently, there are a lot of men, not a majority. A majority support Trump, of course, but there are a lot of men out there who support Kamala Harris. And my question for you is, why do you hate women so much? Seriously, I mean, that's a serious question. I'm not trying to be a smart aleck here. Why would you support a candidate who's done more damage to American women than any vice president in the history of this nation? And yes, that does include Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney might have been disastrous as a vice president, but Kamala Harris's actions as border czar have been more destructive, more harmful, caused more robberies, more assaults, more rapes, and more murders of American women and girls than anybody else. And to be clear, far more. I mean, not even in the same realm. She has caused far more rapes, kidnappings, murders, trafficking in general of illegal alien women and young girls than anybody else, again, because of her open border policies. Kamala Harris might be a woman, but she clearly hates women. She wants to do harm to women. She pretends like she doesn't. She pretends like she wants to protect women. She wants to protect their right to murder preborn babies, preborn women, preborn girls and boys. But that's her quote-unquote credibility when it comes to protecting, and I use that term loosely, protecting women. In reality, she does more damage. And again, the vast majority of the damage that she's done over the last 4 years has been as border czar. More damage than she did as district attorney in San Francisco, more damage than she did as attorney general in the state of California, more damage than she did as a senator. As border czar, she has directly caused the harm of thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of American women and millions of foreign women, illegal alien women. Then, technically speaking, they're migrants up until the point to where they cross the border. So it's not even just the illegal alien women that make it. What about the women and the girls who don't make it? Who are told, who are promised by Kamala Harris that things will be great, that they won't be sexually abused on the way up here. And then after they're sexually abused, if they're able to actually cross the border, then they are stuck in a life of servitude oftentimes to pay back the debt for they're having to pay the people that raped them for hundreds or thousands of miles to get to the border. This topic has me kind of annoyed. So annoyed that I'm actually even willing to go to Fox News for this story, but this bugs me to death. This truly chaps my khakis. According to Fox News, Michael Ruiz, juvenile illegal immigrant gang members behind quote-unquote robbery spree stay out of jail due to age. Frustrated but undeterred, NYPD detectives continue to re-arrest Tren de Aragua gang members, assistant chief says. And he says they're undeterred. They're definitely deterred. Okay? They are definitely deterred. They've expressed their frustration. They don't like to have to rearrest anybody who's committing violent crimes. And yet, in Kamala's America, in Eric Adams' New York City, in Kathy Hochul's New York, that's exactly what's happening. When you get that triple whammy, get out. Okay? Just get out. If you are living in a city that with a Democrat mayor, in a state with a Democrat governor, in this nation that currently has a Democrat president, or at least a figurehead, well, yeah, leave. I mean, you have no. It's not that I don't feel sorry for you, because I know that some people can't leave. But if you have the means to leave and you don't, and then the bad things happen to you, that really is on you. Nah, I shouldn't say that. It's victim blaming. It's at least partially, you could have avoided it by getting out of New York City, getting out of Los Angeles, getting out of Chicago, Baltimore, wherever. If you can't, you can. And that's not your fault. According to the article, Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan prison gang, whose name means Train of Aragua, is putting the loco in locomotive with New York City robbery spree that sees its young members repeatedly stay out of jail. Juvenile legal immigrants in the gang have been attacking people in the Big Apple's famed Times Square and other landmark locations, but remain free due to the Empire State's lenient laws on juvenile crime, according to NYPD's Detective Bureau Assistant Chief Jason Savino. It's shocking, to say the least, and we've seen a progression with this group. Suspects, some as young as 11, are being housed in the former Roosevelt Hotel, which the city converted into a migrant shelter after an influx of border crossings thousands of miles away, the New York Post reported earlier this week. The suspected gang members have been posting pictures and videos of their guns online, according to investigators. Now, don't forget, New York City has massive gun control. Massive gun control. You know, good guys, no guns. Bad guys, gang members, illegal aliens, children, no problem. We'll just arrest you and then let you back out. According to Savino, we know they have access to guns, evident by the fact that they've done gunpoint robberies, and they've been brazen enough to showcase pistols in and around their social media. The Roosevelt, of course they are. Why would they? They have no fear, no concern in a triple Democrat threat city-state nation that they're currently in. The Roosevelt Hotel closed its doors on 45th Street in 2020 due to COVID-19 pandemic before reopening as a migrant shelter. Nearby, the Row NYC Hotel is in a similar state. Outside, both loitering migrants have been photographed taking drugs and alcohol as a migrant-fueled crime wave overtook the city. This is the first formulated group that we found where this group of about 20 individuals that, in pack format, hang out every day. They post on social media. They boast about their crew. You see little pockets in and around Times Square and in and around the shelters. The 20 members of the subset of the gang, it's calling itself Los Diablos de la 42 in reference to New York's 42nd Street, have been arrested in connection with 50 separate crimes. 50 crimes. They've named themselves after their street. It's not their street, it's your street. But at New York City, under the triple threat Democrat scenario that they're in, 42nd Street now belongs to illegal alien gang members with guns. And NYPD, frustrated? Yeah. Undeterred? Nope, they're definitely deterred. Clearly, we know they're definitely deterred. Why? Because the gang members are still there. children with guns who are here illegally, threatening and robbing and harming people and posting evidence to social media. This is the ideal formula for a prosecution. This is the ideal formula for get them the heck off the streets. But in Kamala's America, it's not ideal. It's the exact opposite. Those young men, because these aren't kids, these young men that are harming American citizens every single day, they're here because of Kamala Harris. They are doing what they're doing because of Kamala Harris. So any person who claims to be a man, I don't consider you a man if you endorse this, but any so-called man who backs Kamala Harris because you think that she's going to somehow protect women, send your wife, your daughter, to 42nd Street in New York City. And go with her if you want. Maybe you can protect her because, it's not like you're a beta male or anything. No, I'm not going to. It's just going to make me angry. And you know what? Yesterday I said I'm going to try to have more happy shows. But when this one came across, I feel for everybody involved, including these stupid children that are committing these crimes, because they're empowered. They're empowered by Kamala Harris and the Democrats. They're empowered by Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders. And for that matter, Mitch McConnell. I mean, our politicians have failed miserably. Our representatives have failed miserably. They haven't just failed the people, the victims. They failed these kids themselves who should be taught lessons and sent back home to Venezuela. Try this in Venezuela. A bigger gang of older members with more guns will take them out. In New York City, these kids are the top dogs on 42nd Street. Give me a break. When did we become so weak on crime? The answer, of course, is under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I actually have some decent stories today, some good news. There's actually good news. I'm not just going to be ranting on today's episode of the J.D. Rucker Show, but I do want to encourage everybody to go to mypillow.com/JDR, use promo code JDR, get the maximum discount, support a great patriot in Mike Lindell, and everything's going to be hunky-dory. Everything's going to be all right. We're going to make it through this, folks. I don't want to sound all doom and gloom all the time. Sometimes you need a wake-up call. Other times you need some support. And that's why we've got this young lady here who has a message. And this is probably, it's, every now and then I see these videos or I read stories where it's like, it's something sitting there right in front of me. It's very obvious. And I missed it. I didn't put two and two together, right? Well, this young lady did. She put not only two and two together, she took 1 + 1 and she turned it into 50,000. I mean, this is a winner. Watch this.
Look, I had to put the hat on for this one. Comrade Kamala then came out with her STD test, her health records or whatever, talking about here's my paperwork, here's my labs, y'all need to look at them. In fact, I challenged Donald Trump to release his. Ma'am, you was the one that hid Sleepy Joe's cognitive decline to the American public. We don't care nothing about your STD records or your health records or whatever. In fact, did you take a toxicology test? Because maybe it was you that was the one that left that white powder in no daggone White House, and maybe it wasn't Hunter Biden. Because you must be on that powder if you think we care about this. We don't care. Lady, if we didn't care about the 34 felonies, I don't care about that man's high cholesterol. I really don't. And we got R.F. Kennedy Jr. and Nicole Shanahan to make America healthy again. So we'll be okay. Kick rocks. Beat it, lady.
Wow. Okay, that girl, kick rocks. That girl right there, she rocks. That's great. I hadn't actually thought of it like that, right? I hadn't thought about the trust factor when it comes to a woman, Kamala Harris. At least with Dr. Taco Jill Biden, she had an excuse. It's her husband. Okay, she's gonna have a natural tendency to want to defend him. But Kamala Harris, as vice president, she has a responsibility to make sure that not only can the president fulfill his duties, but if not, she's the one that can initiate the response to remove him from office. Now, it might not be politically expedient for her, which it obviously wasn't. People might consider her the bad guy, picking on the old man with dementia, but that's her job. She's the backup quarterback, but she's also the one that's supposed to be there closest to him, as she and he have both acknowledged she's there with him through all the decisions. Either she was just, we're gonna make it through. We just got to make it through to the end, and then I'll take over or something. Maybe she was thinking that. I don't know. So either it was her blind ambition that said, I don't want to do anything that would be politically not expedient for me, so I'm not going to get rid of Joe. I'm not going to push to have him removed. Or she's just an idiot. And it's possible that she's both. I would argue that it's likely that she is both. Either way, that woman rocks. Let's get back to talking about youth. It's not just illegal aliens. Okay, we were talking about New York City. Yeah, granted, they have a huge illegal alien youth crime problem, but it's youths in general. And I don't know when it happened. Okay, it seemed as if, I don't want to sound like an old man, but 70s kids were normal bad. 80s, they were normal bad. 90s, they were normal bad, right? I mean, they were bad. There were bad kids and there were good kids, right? But you didn't see what you're seeing today. There doesn't seem to be this transition. Okay, there's no missing link here. It's like pretty bad, pretty bad, pretty bad, pretty bad, but all, throughout every decade, understandably pretty bad. That's what's going to happen with kids. But then all of a sudden, the last 4 years, I'm just saying, the last 4 years, really since COVID, okay, I don't want to tie this to just Kamala Harris and just Joe Biden, just Democrat rule. That clearly plays a role in it. But also with the lockdowns, and, you can blame all sorts of things, but there was just this sharp zoom. I mean, kids they're bad today. And I don't want to say all of them, but I mean, almost all of them. Okay? I keep my eyes, anytime I see a group of more than one kid, whenever I'm out and about doing stuff, I got my eye on them. I didn't used to do that. Okay? 5 years ago, I wasn't, the kids will be kids, right? Now it's like, at what point is a kid going to pull out a knife and just stab you randomly? At what point is a kid just going to walk up behind you and just punch you for no reason other than to get a viral TikTok video? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's something. I mean, it's definitely something. Let's take a quick break. And when we get back, I will get to this story about Colorado. For the last, 4 years, coincidentally lining up with the Biden-Harris regime, for the last 4 years, it has made sense to a whole bunch of Americans to move their wealth or their retirement over to physical precious metals. This is a good thing. Okay, and I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not giving you financial advice. I'm just telling you that it's happening. A lot of Americans are doing it, and they know why they're doing it. Between de-dollarization, inflation, the potential for recession, everything that's going on, the turmoil that's going to come with the presidential election, regardless of who wins, by the way, there's going to be economic turmoil before, during, and after the election. We know this. This is coming. So a lot of people are trying to find the higher ground of physical precious metals. The challenge there is that not all gold companies are made the same. Look, I know that you might seem like they are. It seems like, everybody's got their conservative commentators that promote them. The difference between me and these other conservative commentators and show hosts and whatever is that I actually did my research. And unfortunately, I've come to the conclusion that the other ones could not have, because if they did, many of them, not 100%, but a lot of them, if they did their research, if they knew exactly what they were promoting, there was no way they would touch these companies with a 10-foot pole. A lot of these companies are promoting their gold and silver, but they're doing so at huge markups. I mean, we're talking in sometimes over 100% markup on the gold and silver they're putting into gold IRAs. I work with a faith-driven company, Genesis Gold Group, and they do not charge enormous premiums on top of the gold in order to get you your $10,000 in free silver or whatever gimmick is being pushed. They just deal with you directly, honestly, from a faith-driven perspective. This is the only company I've ever seen in the industry that actually will sit there and pray with you. So check them out. See if they can help you. Go to rumblegold.com, and see what Genesis Gold Group can do for you today. So I really don't know what it is about this world today. There's probably a few separate things, but the youth are going crazy. I do get concerned every time I'm out in public and I see any size group of youths. And when I say youths, I'm yes, it's kids, but it's also, even young adults. Okay. Could it be strictly just Democrat policies? And I'm not suggesting that lockdowns, the stupid lockdowns, had nothing to do with it. I'm not suggesting that drugs or social media or whatever, video games, whatever you want to attribute it to. There's all sorts of different excuses. I'm not saying that those didn't have an effect. What I'm saying is, could the right policies have nipped this in the bud? Have Democrats dropped the ball? And that the answer to that question can be seen, I think, when you look at blue cities versus red cities. When you look at areas where police are revered versus where they're demonized. When you see district attorneys and judges that are willing to do what it takes. And perhaps most importantly, when you see cities themselves that treat this seriously and don't set arbitrary limits on whatever. That seems to be the case, at least in Colorado Springs, according to an article that we have posted over at jdrucker.com from bearingarms.com. I'm going to be putting a lot more stories over at jdrucker.com, stories that I'll be covering during the show. This is going to become more of my centralized hub. I tried to do with America First Report, but we publish like 100 stories a day there, so it's kind of hard to sift through and find all the stories that I want. So I'm just going to put the stories that I actually want to talk about over at jdrucker.com if you want to get a sneak peek into what the upcoming shows are going to be about. So, according to this article from bearingarms.com, Colorado's catch and release policies for juvenile suspects leading to more smash and grab burglaries. There's been a staggering rise in the number of smash and grab burglaries in and around Colorado Springs, Colorado this year. And Police Chief Adrian Vasquez says many of these crimes are being committed by juveniles who are quickly let loose and sent home until their first hearing, even if they're suspected of multiple offenses. Vasquez says gun stores and pawn shops are the primary targets of the 40 smash and grab burglaries reported in the city and the surrounding area this year. 40 this year! In Colorado Springs, that's smash and grabs by youths, whatever. Officers have identified 19 juveniles in connection with the crimes, and I'm sure there's a lot more than that, with 11 of those suspects arrested. Of those 11, however, just 4 remain in juvenile custody. Part of the problem, according to Vasquez, is that the law treats these smash and grabs as relatively minor offenses, even when the suspects cause tens of thousands of dollars in damage to the businesses they're targeting. But the police chief, along with District Attorney Michael Allen, also pointed to the state's slashing of the number of beds available to house juvenile offenders, which has resulted in a severe shortage of space to house juvenile offenders. And again, this is what I'm talking about when we're looking at arbitrary limits. It really does come down to DEI, to be clear, but that's a discussion for another day. They impose these limits on detentions. Sometimes it's for budgetary reasons. Other times it's because, when we see various quotas up or down, doesn't matter what they are. When they start setting these limits or making requirements for certain demographics of people to be enrolled into college, or certain limits that you can't have more juvenile offenders beds in these juvenile detention centers than X amount. The question is why? I mean, shouldn't that be determined by the number of juvenile offenders that you have? Unfortunately, in blue cities like Colorado and Colorado Springs, in blue states like Colorado, the answer is not so appealing. Here's here's a quote. Not a quote, but this is from the news report. In 2003, Colorado legislators set a 479-bed cap on juvenile detention facilities. Over the years, the statutory cap has been cut by more than half and now stands at 215 beds. The Pikes Peak region is allocated 27 beds at Zebulon Pike, the youth detention facility in Colorado Springs. As according to, I think this is Vasquez, with less bed space and more crime, it makes no sense. It doesn't match what we're seeing here on the ground. It just simply doesn't. And yes, that was Vasquez. The Division of Youth Services said there's been a 28% increase in juvenile arrests in the state from 2021 to 2023. That's conspicuous. 4th Judicial District Attorney Michael Allen shares the same concerns as Chief Vasquez. Allen said the youth detention facility in Colorado Springs is often at capacity and rarely has space for new offenders. What we know now is that we're almost always operating at capacity, meaning that there's always 27 kids in custody. So if a kid commits a violent offense and is put into custody pending trial, that means another kid has to be pushed out of the other side and back into a home life where that's not supportive and law-abiding, said District Attorney Allen. And the home life aspect of it, we haven't addressed that at all. And it's a touchy subject because on one hand, it's like, oh, we need to hold parents accountable. And I agree. On the other hand, we need to keep government out of parenting. And I agree. So which one is it? I think it's a case-by-case basis. Unfortunately, the people that handle these cases, generally speaking, aren't handling them the right way. Okay? They take into consideration aspects, political and cultural aspects, that should have nothing to do with it. For example, we've seen how we will see. I've seen. You guys haven't seen it yet. I'll save that for the next hour. But how the Biden-Harris regime is paving the way for children to be taken away nationwide, to be taken away if their parents are not gender affirming enough for the state. So it's always like there's always it's a tricky situation to navigate because you don't want to give government any more power or any more control over parenting, but you also don't want parents who are awful to continue to be awful if it's causing other people harm. I'm not talking about, oh, there's a bad parent, take the kids away. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about when these parents are doing things that are raising children to become violent criminal offenders, and it's clear and unambiguous that it was a result of the parenting that created this. For example, if you have a parent that is criminal, then substance abuse, thievery, whatever. Again, fine line, because I never want to side with the state on any issue that involves parenting. So I'm not going to, because you might say, well, but there are people that can be saved because these parents are raising kids to be hurtful. That's true. But if you start going down that road, you start going down the other road too, which is more children being taken away from their parents unrighteously. Forget about unlawfully. I'm talking about unrighteously. Parents should not have their kids taken away because they're not gender affirming. And that's the slippery slope, right? If we say, well, this kid, we gotta punish the parents because this kid became a violent offender. You might agree with that. But then are you going to disagree when they say this kid became a violent offender because the parents weren't gender affirming? Are you going to go down that road too? I mean, where do we draw the line? I prefer to draw the line. I default to less involvement, no involvement of the state when it comes to parenting. But that's just me. Do we have time? We do. We got time for one more quick story before the break. Let's pull this up. This is over at the National Pulse. I told you we were going to have some good news today, didn't I? Trump earns coveted newspaper endorsement, which could flip swing state. And yes, Nevada is a swing state. The Las Vegas Review-Journal is throwing its support behind former President Donald J. Trump, emphasizing his proven leadership, economic accomplishments, and ability to handle foreign policy challenges. The newspaper described the current political landscape as unsettling, with, quote, political norms strewn across the landscape. In this chaotic atmosphere, the Review Journal argues that Trump offers the chance for a more stable and prosperous future. The newspaper describes the litany of criminal charges Trump is facing as prosecutorial overreach aimed at derailing his campaign. It highlights his strong record as president, noting that the earth didn't stop spinning. Instead, his presidency was marked by relative global stability and a strong American economy. Inflation was an afterthought, the newspaper observed. The Review Journal contrasts this with life under the Biden-Harris government. Two major wars rage. The debt has ballooned to $35 trillion. Inflation hit 9%, the highest rate in 4 decades, in large part because Democrats can't temper their insatiable desire to spend other people's money. Gosh, that's fire. Prices for staples remain stubbornly elevated. Housing costs have soared, including in Las Vegas. High interest rates make it more difficult for new home buyers and burden families carrying credit card and other debt. If this weren't destructive enough, Ms. Harris and Mr. Biden turned a blind eye to the border for 3 years, releasing millions of illegal crossers into the country and causing mayors in blue cities to cry, "Uncle." It is so true. Kudos to them for being a relatively honest representative of corporate media. If you're watching on Worldview Tube, I will bid you adieu until tomorrow. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. If you're watching on any of the other channels, just stay right there. We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about stuff other than this. Whether you've been a prepper for a long time, or maybe you're just getting started, you're just looking around and thinking how crazy it is, we usually cover the basics. You get your food, you get your water, you get your ammunition. Don't forget your ammo. You get your battery chargers, solar battery chargers, or whatever. But a lot of times I think people will forget their meds. Okay, whether it's chronic meds, antibiotics, I think a lot of people don't even realize that you can stock up on that stuff. They go to the doctor, they go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist said, "Oh, here's your 2-month supply," or whatever. Well, you can actually stock up on a lot of these meds by going to jdrucker.com/meds. You'll talk to the good folks over at Jace Medical. They can get you a 12-month supply of certain prescription drugs. They can get you emergency meds, all sorts of good stuff, things that you may or may not need, but it's always good to have it on hand, because I guarantee you, even if you don't think you need it today, you might need it in the future. jdrucker.com/meds. Welcome back. Before the break, I hinted at a story that I'm going to bring up now. Biden-Harris regime paves way for bureaucrats to take gender-confused kids from non-affirming parents. It really is happening. And as it tends to do, especially when it comes to Democrats, it starts locally, expands to a city, then a county, then a state, then the nation. This is one of the things that's at stake here in this election, my friends. This comes from the Daily Caller. Transphobia is child abuse. Alex Roque, who runs the Ally Foreign Center for Homeless LGBTQ Youth in New York City, asserted on a U.S. Department of Health and Human Services webinar last fall. In less than 3 minutes, he cast a vision for completely transforming child protective systems nationwide. Family rejection of a child's gender identity cannot be dismissed as a personal view, he argued. Non-affirmation must be treated as abuse. In other words, if you believe that your boy is actually a boy, then you are abusing him. Because if he thinks he's a girl, then instead of treating it as a mental illness, that's if it's severe, and if it's not severe, it's just standard childhood confusion. I remember I had a friend, quick story. I had a friend, Chris, in elementary school, and it blew me away that he had Cabbage Patch Kids. I'm thinking to myself, wow, that's kind of weird, okay? I mean, even I think I was 6 or 7. I was like, why, Mommy, why does he have Cabbage Patch Kids? Isn't that for girls? I was like, yeah, well, sometimes boys, they can like them too. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like they're like dainty dolls. They're kind of cool. It's like, if you say so. I don't think they're cool. I think they're for girls. She's like, well, whatever. You don't have to get one. Chris obviously likes them, And I would argue that if Chris were in today's world, they'd be like, oh my gosh, he must be a girl. We need to talk to him about gender transition. We need to ask him questions about, does he feel like being a girl? And if he does, we got to help him. We have to encourage him to be a girl. Don't even call him. We have to encourage Chris. And don't call her Chris anymore. Call her Christy. I mean, that's seriously how it would go down today. I looked up Chris. This is about a year. It was right when the whole tranny thing got started, which was, I guess, a lot longer than a year. But you know what I mean? when it really started getting crazier and crazier, that's when I started. I thought, you know what? Whatever happened to Chris? And I went and I looked him up on Facebook. And, thankfully I remembered how to spell his very odd last name. I looked him up. There he is. I mean, just a strapping dude. Got kids, had grandkids. Totally not a girl. Okay? But Chris, in today's world, because he was playing with dolls as a 7-year-old, because he did have a little, I would say, there was a little bit of, I don't even know if you can call it femininity when they're 6 or 7, but I mean, he wasn't like, oh, G.I. Joe. He was a little bit girlish, okay? And I mean, I remember seeing him get into a fight one time too, and like a fist fight. It was funny, not funny. It was a strange story because the fight had actually ended. Then his dad pulls up in a car. We're out in the parking lot, and I guess this was a pre-planned fight. His dad pulls up, and he says, "Kick his ass, Chris." And Chris says, "This is for you, Dad." He goes in for the punching, just gets knocked out. That visual will never leave my head. Didn't get knocked out, but did get pummeled pretty hard. Anyway. Fun story about Chris. No, but I looked him up on Facebook. Dude's a dude, total dude. Manly as they get, okay? Might as well be a lumberjack. And they would have been trying to tell Chris that he's a girl. They would have been trying to indoctrinate him if he had been 7 here in 2024. Anyway, back to the article. If they were denying them food, and there's a quote from this Alex Woke. If they were denying them food or denying them access to school or denying other things, there would be headlines. Well, yeah. I mean, if you're starving a child, that's abuse. Okay? I agree. There would be prosecutions. Yes, there would. But not because there shouldn't be prosecutions if a parent does not want to engage in the current indoctrination / brainwashing agenda that's in play against our children. It's demonic. It is mental illness. Like I said, in its most extreme cases, these are mental illnesses. And to be clear, it's always been considered a mental illness. Gender dysphoria has been considered a mental illness until very recently. Whatever. Back to the article. Among gender activists the Biden-Harris administration has enlisted to shape its policies, Roque's definition of abuse is not fringe, and his vision for reshaping the system is not hypothetical. While crafting its foster care rule, finalized in April, HHS officials took inspiration from social workers in Cuyahoga County, I think, Ohio, who spent years pioneering a program that strong-arms parents into affirming whatever confused beliefs children expressed about their gender. Parents who decline risk losing a voice in their child's life. A voice? Give me a break. The program, developed in Cuyahoga County using federal grant funds, provided the HHS administration for children and families with an ideal model for infusing gender ideology into foster care and social services. The Daily Caller News Foundation discovered in reviewing hundreds of documents and emails obtained via public record request. It is happening, folks. We didn't want it to happen. We didn't think it was going to happen. Maybe some of us did. But here it is. I mean, it's here. It's happening, and this is on the ballot. This is just reason number 537 why when Christians say, "Oh, I can't vote for Trump because he's just not ideal," or maybe you know what? I'm not even looking for ideal. I just don't think he's a good person. I think he's a philanderer. I think that he's a liar. I think he's a convict. I think that he gets involved with porn stars. How can I, as a Christian, vote for somebody who gets involved with porn stars? And I get it, sort of. I understand that mentality to some extent. But like I noted yesterday, if you need a reason, stop trying to convince yourself or stop listening to people trying to convince you to vote for Trump. You have to vote against this stuff. You have to vote against the indoctrination, the brainwashing that the Kamala Harris regime will promote. And they will go beyond promoting. They will get it, okay, if they have control of the House, which is possible, control of the Senate, which they currently have and could retain, and Kamala Harris in the Oval Office. I will put it at a 99% certainty that there will be a nationwide ban on parents who do not affirm gender dysphoria. Parents who do not embrace whatever indoctrination their children have been given by outside state officials, such as school administrators or teachers, such as medical professionals. And I don't think these people are necessarily bad. They're just as delusional as the rest of us. They're just delusional in a more crucial area, such as the well-being of children. And it will be their word, their judgment that is used to take children away from their parents, away from loving families, especially if those parents are trying to infuse a biblical worldview into the children. This is not an attack against gender. This is not an attack against mental illness. This is an attack against the faith. So if you're a Christian who's going to sit on the sidelines because Trump just isn't good enough for you, I encourage you, vote against the demonic takeover of our nation. And unfortunately for you, that means you have to vote for Trump. Because if you vote for Kamala Harris, or if you don't vote at all, then you are actively assisting in the demonic takeover of our nation. You, Mr. Non-voter Christian, would be the reason that children are taken away from their parents who are trying to instill a biblical worldview into them. I'm sure I'm offending a whole bunch of you right now. You're probably like, that's not fair, that's not true, that's not this, that's not that. It is. It's true. I'm sorry. Sorry. If you don't vote against this demonic takeover of our nation, then you are supporting the demonic takeover of our nation. Don't even get me started on abortion. People like this guy, Alex Roque, he disgusts me less than people who take the high road and they don't vote because they would only vote for somebody who meets their standards. These people who refuse to vote against the demonic takeover of our nation disgust me more than Alex Roque. At least he's honest. At least he's aware. His ideas might be wrong, but he can defend them appropriately, logically, at least in his own mind. But the people who can't vote against the demonic takeover of our nation and who continue to claim that they are Bible-believing Christians, I think you're a hypocrite and you disgust me. On that note, I am going to have to take a break prematurely because if I don't, I'm going to start spitting. You guys don't want to see me spit. I already drool enough during the shows. I have to actively stop myself because I start to talk in such... So yeah, before the spitting starts, let's take a short break. The unfortunate reality of our world is that certain products, such as certain long-term storage food products, are going to be likely, I don't want to say it's definitely going to be, but very likely, are going to be hot commodities, tradable commodities here in the very near future. If we don't correct course, then simple things like steaks such as ribeye, New York strip, tenderloin, and sirloin are going to be basically non-existent. Anybody who has some is going to be able to use it as a commodity of whether you're trading for ammunition or gold or water or other food or energy or whatever you'll be able to trade for. It's going to be a very hot commodity, and it's not me saying this. There's a lot of people telling me this. Go visit prepperfarms.com and use promo code JDR while you're there. Take advantage of our sale on long-term storage beef, and you will be definitely glad that you stock up, unfortunately, in the near future. All right, let's get to a happier topic. The economy. Yes. Okay, no. So the economy is not looking great right now, but we have an election in 3 weeks. We have the opportunity to start the trek down the long road to economic recovery, and it will be a long road. Trump's not going to come in there and boom, done, economy's back. It's not going to be like that, even though there will be certain things about the economy that will improve right off the bat. If he is elected, we will see economic improvement immediately, because a lot of what happens within the economy is based upon sentiment of the consumers, sentiment of the businesses. I would argue there's at least one, the company down the block, not down the block literally, but within driving distance of me, there's a company that shut down recently, and they've hinted at reopening. Our theory is that they would consider reopening only if Trump gets reelected, elected, whatever. It goes both. But anyway, yeah, I hope they do, because I love their stuff. I hope that happens. We will see, but it will depend upon what happens 3 weeks from today, and of course, unfortunately, the days and weeks after that. Article I have posted over at jdrucker.com, where I'm going to be putting a lot more of the articles that I discussed during the show, so check it out. Bookmark it, jdrucker.com. This is an article from the Economic Collapse blog by Michael Schneider. 10 signs that the economy is a giant mess as the election approaches. Only 10? Come on, Mike. The health of the economy has been a major determining factor in many past presidential elections, and the health of the economy is certainly going to have an enormous influence on the outcome of the upcoming presidential election. In fact, according to a poll that was just released by Rasmussen, the economy is the number one issue by a wide margin for voters in the ultra-important swing state of Pennsylvania. Unfortunately for Democrats, most Americans are not pleased with how the economy is performing, and it appears that conditions are now taking another turn for the worse. The following are 10 signs the economy is a giant mess as the election approaches. Number 1, the number of Americans filing first-time claims for unemployment benefits just hit the highest level in over a year. This comes from, who's this? From Investopedia. Number of people filing for unemployment for the first time was at its highest level in more than a year, partly due to storm damage and labor stoppages. Initial jobless claims for the week ending October 5th came in at 258,000, up 33,000 from last week's level of 225,000, and the highest since it hit the same level in August of 2023, data from the Labor Department shows. And as we know, data from the Labor Department, generally speaking, is wrong anyway. They correct it later. Number 2, according to primary security monitor, sorry, I got distracted by a note. The percentage of middle-income households that rate their personal financial situation negatively has hit the highest level that they have ever recorded. Primerica's latest Financial Security Monitor report for the third quarter found 55% of middle-income households now rate their personal finance situation negatively, a 6-point jump from the previous survey. It is important to note that we went from a minority to a majority of Americans believe that their personal financial situation is negative. A majority of Americans. There was a time, and we're not talking about a whole long time ago, there was a time when over 60% of Americans felt that the economy was in good shape and heading in the right direction. Today, for a majority of Americans to view their personal finances in a negative light, folks, you could do an entire article just on that, and actually they did. It was over at, I'm not going to go to that one. 6-point jump, 55%. Here's a quote from Glenn Williams, CEO of Primerica. For the first time in a year, a majority of middle-income households are feeling negative about their personal finances. In fact, this latest report represents the highest negative rating we've seen since we began the survey exactly, wait a second, wait for it, 4 years ago. Number 3, I'm old enough to remember a time in this country when you were set for life if you had $1 million. Oh, unfortunately, thanks to our endless cost of living crisis, it now costs $4.4 million to live the American dream over the course of a lifetime. This comes from USA Today. You can live the American dream, but it will cost you. The lifetime tab for such aspirations as owning a home, driving new cars, raising kids, and taking annual vacations comes to a cool $4.4 million, according to Investopedia, the financial media site. That's more than the average American earns in a lifetime. Number 4, the company that produces more French fries than anyone else in North America is cutting production and laying off workers due to a dramatic slowdown in consumer demand of French fries. Now, that could be a good sign. That could mean, hey, people are starting to wake up to the damage of ultra-processed foods. Let's go with that. Lamb Weston, the largest producer of French fries in North America and a major supplier to fast food chains, restaurants, and groceries stores, is closing a production plant in Washington State. The company announced last week that it would lay off nearly 400 employees, or 4% of its workforce, and temporarily cut production lines in response to slowing customer demand of French fries. At one time, Boeing, number 5, at one time, Boeing was flying high, but now it has decided to lay off approximately 10% of its entire workforce. And let's be clear, that's not necessarily an economic thing. That's a Boeing thing. They're just awful. CEO Boeing told employees late Friday that the company plans to cut 10% of its total staff over the coming months. Our business is in a difficult position, you think? And it's hard to overstate the challenges we face together, you think? Said Kelly Ortberg, who started at CEO of the troubled aircraft maker 2 months ago and has been dealing with a strike by 33,000 hourly workers for half of his time on the job. I hope he's making a lot of money for that. Number 6, actually I don't. Number 6, the banking industry continues to deeply struggle. So far this year, banks in the United States have permanently shut down over 700 local branches. U.S. banks closed more than 700 branches in the first 9 months of the year, forcing thousands to travel further to access vital services. Bank of America closed the most locations of any bank, shuttering 132 between January and September. U.S. Bank followed swiftly behind, having closed 101 of their own branches. Now, to be fair, closing of branches of banks is nothing new, and it is not necessarily an indicator of financial strength. Okay? Now, I agree with just about everything on this list, but that one, I wouldn't have put it on the list because, number one, people are going to online banking more and more and more. On my bank, I don't even have a physical location that I could drive to. I know you're probably thinking, that's stupid, Rucker, and I agree. But I didn't know until later on. It's like, I found a good credit union. I like their rates. I like what they're doing. And then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, I'd like to go to a branch. They're like, we don't have any branches. It's like, we're just online only. I'm like, whoa, that's a detail I missed. Anyway, point is that closing down branches, not necessarily the hugest news, but, I digress. Number 7, after 75 years, True Value now this is big. True Value has been forced to file for bankruptcy and will be selling substantially all of its operations to a rival. True Value, the 75-year-old hardware store brand, has filed for bankruptcy and is selling substantially all of its operations to a rival, the company announced Monday. In a press release, True Value said it will continue day-to-day operations of selling hardware and other homeware tools to its 4,500 independently operated locations during the Chapter 11 process, which includes a $153 million stalking horse bid from rival company Do It Best. That is bad news, economically speaking, because when you start getting into crucial goods, it's either bad company or bad economy, and I would say that True Value, being in business for 75 years, it's probably the economy. Number 8, did you ever think that you would live to see a day when hundreds of 7-Eleven stores would be closing? Sadly, that time has now arrived. 7-Eleven. There's certain indicators, right, of good economy, bad economy. Convenience stores, generally speaking, do very well during good economies, and they can usually sustain or survive during bad economies because people still need gas. People still need Doritos, unfortunately. People still need ciggies and batteries or whatever you get at convenience stores. I don't go to them, generally, but except for gas. They still need lottery tickets, right? Several hundred underperforming 7-Eleven locations across North America are closing, the convenience store announced. 7&I Holdings, the chain's Japan-based parent company, revealed in an earnings report Thursday that 444 locations of 7-Eleven are shutting down because of a variety of issues, including slowing sales, declining traffic, inflationary pressure, and a decrease in cigarette purchases. So maybe this isn't so bad. Fewer smokers means fewer cigarettes. Yay. Number 9, Home Depot apparently believes that rough times are ahead because they are dumping millions of square feet of warehouse space. Again, economic indicator for sure. Home Depot is hastily exiting warehouse space to the tune of 3.2 million square feet in a month, according to BizNow. Since late August, Home Depot has put up nearly 4 million square feet of warehouse space for sublease, including 1.3 million SF Phoenix warehouse and 1.1 million SF distribution centers in the Inland Empire, according to CoStar Analytics. Not good. And number 10, at this point, things are so bad that even Disney is laying off workers. Where are the pedophiles going to work now? Okay, that was uncalled for. According to sources cited by Deadline, Disney is pushing ahead with new layoffs as part of a broader cost-saving initiative. About 300 employees across Disney's corporate division will be impacted this week. The layoffs of 300 employees began on Tuesday and will continue until the end of the week. They are all U.S.-based employees who work across the company's corporate operations, including legal, HR, finance, and communications. Folks, I said yesterday, we should focus on this, we should focus on that. I'm going to backtrack a bit. It really is the economy. People are hurting. You and I are hurting. If you're not hurting, count your blessings. If you're like the rest of us, we're hurting. We need help. And that help will come from us, from us doing as much of our own hard work as possible. But it sure would help if we had somebody who can take government and just get it as much out of our way as possible, and that person is Donald Trump. And as much as I dislike the Republican Party, that party is the Republican Party. They are just marginally better than the Democrats, but they are better. And right now, we could use a whole lot of better. So I'm not going to support rhinos, but I'm not going to diss them nearly as much either. I'm going to try to support constitutional conservatives. And I'm going to support populist President Donald Trump. I hope you will as well. Lord willing, I'll be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, you all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless. All right, we are going to end today's show with a replay of an interview I did last week with Jonathan Rose, CEO of Genesis Gold Group. This is a substantive interview. Yes, of course, they are a sponsor. But I think I asked some pretty good questions. And I think that Jonathan gave some pretty good answers. So let's play that. And otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow. We're switching over to Zoom for this segment of this show. I'm bringing on my very good friend. And in many ways, I would call him my economic mentor because he shows me all the things that I didn't know about the economy, about just finances in general, and of course, as it pertains to gold and silver in particular. We are very blessed, pleased, and honored to have Jonathan Rose, CEO of Genesis Gold Group, joining us today. Jonathan, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me, and I am at your beck and call. Appreciate you having me back on.
Absolutely. This is something that we have to... we're in crunch time, obviously, with the election coming up, and I had seen an article over at one of my sites, over at AmericaFirstReport.com. We also have it over at the Liberty Daily Report, and I'm assuming it's going to go on Gateway Pundit here very soon. But it was titled, Defending Retirement Savings at Top of Mind for Mature Trump Supporters Ahead of an Election. And I was reading through it, and I saw your quote at the end. I'm going to, just in case you don't remember, I'm going to read it to you. I've always said you don't wait to buy gold, you buy gold and wait. That perspective has never been more true than this final month before the presidential election. Briefly tell us, what do you mean by that?
Gosh, I always say you don't wait to buy the flood insurance after the banks burst. You buy it beforehand. So obviously, when we're in a pivotal 30-day crunch, we're not sure exactly how the markets are going to react. It could be good, it could be bad. Good and bad how? Well, if you have equities and paper assets, such as stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities tied to the market, and we go into a seasonal meltdown or there's a lot of volatility out there, you want to have insurance. And that insurance includes physical assets such as gold and silver that, in my opinion, you should either be holding on to, like one here in front of me, or put into your IRA 401k TSP retirement plan. The IRS actually lets you roll over your IRA tax and penalty free, and you can put physical commodities in there. So when I say you don't wait to buy gold, you buy gold and wait. It's literally get it now, wait. Hopefully, we don't need to put our umbrellas up, but if we do, we know we have it at our side, in good or bad times.
Very good. Very good. This article shows, and it talks about almost exactly what you just said. But the thing that drew my attention, there's some quotes in here from actual Genesis customers, and I wanted to read a few of these to you and get your reaction. Maybe they're watching the show and they can see, oh, Jonathan replied to my comment. This is Cassie L. She is a new client of this faith-driven precious metals company. She says, I'm voting for Trump, but I know even he can't fix inflation or cost of living overnight. My husband and I feel much better about our life savings being backed by silver and gold, even if Trump wins, and God help us if he doesn't. From your perspective, well, number one, react to that, but then tell us more about what you think as far as what gold might do if Trump wins, what gold and silver might do if Kamala wins, God forbid. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I thought this was going to turn into those shows I've seen, like where Jimmy Kimmel has these celebrities on and they're reading like mean tweets. So I'm glad that's actually not the case, and it's a happy Genesis Gold Group client. I also agree. I hope that Trump comes in and save us, because we need saving from this current administration. I mean, $35 trillion in debt and growing daily. The world's getting ready and geared up for World War III. Troops are going back to the Middle East. Stress tests are still being fouled by local and regional banks. So we're in a total mess right now, and we do need saving. And I believe there's one man for the job that can do that better than others, and that is former President Donald Trump. So let's hope when the countdown stops and the dust settles, that we get the announcement that we're looking for. Whoever has to do the heavy lifting forward moving, I think former President Trump will be able to get the job done a lot quicker than other people out there. And I always say that when you look at all the baggage that we're currently facing, it's not a quick fix. So this isn't wave a magic wand and all the problems here in the US go away, but we need to establish some building blocks to not just build up our reputation as the once great nations that we all know and love, but also to wrong the rights and these bad fiscal policy deals that have been made by the previous generations of bad hombres in office, as we would say. So I think we've got a long way to go. I think gold is really that nest egg that people are looking for safety and security. Often over the years, you'll hear me say things like gold's an integral part of a balanced portfolio. Or even, when I used to deal with a lot of people from the Middle East before 9/11 happened, I remember back then the words used to resonate with me because they used to say to me, gold is a flight to safety and security. And that was kind of a sentence that always stuck with me because it is. It's a flight to safety and security during unsettling times. So, we've got crunch time coming. The clock's, ticking down. It's in the fourth quarter. We're not exactly sure what's going to happen. We all know what we would like to see that happens. And it's definitely best to, kind of sandbag our financial assets and make sure that we have the right decisions and putting our best foot forward so we can prepare for what's about to happen next, whether that's good or bad.
Another excellent response. People can pick up, by the way, if they are interested in reaching out and contacting Jonathan Rose over at Genesis Gold Group, or more importantly, getting the wealth protection kit that they have put together. They can go to rumblegold.com or they can call 800-200-4653. That's 800-200-4653, 800-200-GOLD, as it happens to be. I've got one more quote for you. This one, you touched on the way that foreign affairs, everything that's happening. We've seen what's happening in the Middle East. We hear about what's happening in Ukraine. We hear rumors about China and Taiwan and even the Philippines. It's a concern, and obviously, I think one of the biggest concerns for you and your group is the de-dollarization in BRICS. Here's a quote from Wendy D. Okay, Wendy D says, "I want Trump's fiscal policies, but I know China and others will not be happy. I contacted Genesis because our enemies would want nothing more than to hurt our economy as much or more than they've done under Kamala. The difference is he'll try to stop them, but Kamala will hand them keys to the back door." Now, you've seen some of Trump's, how he handles, sort of non-interventionalist mentality and trying to end wars here, end wars there. Will that have a positive impact for like stock markets, for the economy? Walk us through a long term. I'm talking about over the course of 4 years. What do you see as far as how Trump's foreign policies can impact our economy here in the United States?
Yeah, I think it impacts us in a very positive way, especially to kind of reestablish the dollar as a stronger kind of reserve currency, which we've kind of slipped and kind of fallen to the back of the pack. One thing I think Trump does very well is kind of like on that choke collar, like healing people, healing nations, to kind of give them the little tug and reining people back in, not necessarily in a bad way, but understanding what their strengths and weaknesses are. And it's kind of like the art of the deal. Yes, he's a businessman, but he's a businessman that has a track record of wins and losses. And people kind of highlight those losses. But as a business owner myself, you got to relate to those business losses as well, because you only learn from your mistakes. So I think when you have people that are lifelong politicians, they've never run a company before, they're maybe school teachers. I'm not taking anything away from school teachers. It's we need them and I have a lot of respect for them. But when you're dealing with people in the trenches that are working with foreign nations and they understand their mentality, because people from other nations think very differently, and it's understanding the psychology and how to kind of partner and kind of bridge that gap. And that's something that we've seen past results with former President Trump has done an extremely good job at doing. So I think with our foreign allies and maybe countries that aren't necessarily allies, he'll be able to bring them back into the fold, get them to the table, get them to renegotiate, which I think is going to be favorable for the US economy, because anything can't be far more unfavorable than we're seeing right now. We can't do a lot worse apart from defund the police, stop funding the military, disband, other programs out there that are a necessity, and kind of stop a lot of the corruption on the state level. That's something I've always pointed out over the years, is how much money is being wasted here in the US. And obviously a lot of money's even going overseas. Stop funding, Iran, stop funding terrorized organizations. So, charity, they say, starts from home. And I think, former President Trump is very good at realizing the glaring mistakes that's happening in our nation. And that's why, you have these big names, Tesla CEO, Elon Musk getting behind Trump, because he sees the opportunities we have in America. They've slipped through our fingers, and it's time to grab these reins back, JD. So, Wendy's absolutely correct. The foreign policies, they've been thrown out the window with the bathwater over the years, and it's time to start reeling these people back in. And it's all very doable, but we need the correct person at the helm. And, having a Trump in office, is that going to be good for gold? Well, you know what? I think it will be, because the first few years of Trump's presidency, gold actually surged. And then once the economy got back on track, gold definitely plateaued out. But I think there's always going to be a role for precious metals in your portfolio, just like there's a role for equities, bonds, and treasuries, the housing market. It's just another box that needs to be ticked, and understanding how much of it you need to have, whether you're holding on to it at home, keeping it under the floorboards, or putting it into a depository inside like some type of retirement vehicle, like an IRA or 401k.
Beautiful. So, it's so refreshing to hear you speak about this stuff, because I get the emails from pretty much every gold company out there. Every single email I get is just talking about how basically, it's all over. We're all gonna die, and the only thing that we can do, just buy gold and head for the hills. And hearing you talking about how, number one, how you back Trump, and how people don't realize this, but the vast majority, we see all these conservative show house hosts out there. They're saying, "Oh, buy gold from these guys, buy gold from that guys." What they don't realize, I hope they don't realize it, is that a lot of these guys actually back the Democrats, because Democrats can be beneficial for gold. But that's a whole other discussion for another day. Speaking of doing the right thing, though, you are not just involved with Genesis Gold Group. You are actually involved with something that I think is absolutely fantastic. Tell us about what you're doing with the Matt Hughes Project.
Oh, okay. So Matt Hughes Project, not entirely online, but we're pretty much there. But over the years, and I kind of talk about how we kind of met Matt Hughes. And some of you are saying, who's Matt Hughes? He was a former UFC fighter, 9 times champion, retired, and we'll get into his story in a little bit. But over the years, we've sponsored a lot of events. And one of the events we sponsored was for traumatic brain injury. And traumatic brain injury is a silent event. And it's something that really I grew close and dear to, because when I went to this event, and Genesis Gold Group was one of the sponsors, we were very fortunate enough to meet people like retired UFC fighters, retired Navy SEALs and vets, great soldiers and military personnel that served our country, came back injured, didn't get the help that they were looking for through the vets. And even though the money was there, it never got dispensed to them. And the traumatic brain injury was a charity I got involved with, where they were even helping people like Matt Hughes. Now, Matt Hughes retired with all his faculties from the UFC. And then one day he got, and it sounds crazy to say this, he got hit by a train on the way home. And not many people know about his story and his plight to recovery. He was in a coma for 19 days. Most people who are categorized with the type of brain traumatic injury he had get what's called a locked-in syndrome, where you're literally a prisoner in your own body and you can only communicate and move your eyes. It's literally a death sentence. There's only 2 people that have survived this, Matt Hughes being one, and another one, funny enough, was a Navy SEAL. So it just goes to tell me the mental aspect of trying to recover from an accident like this, because it's a silent killer, traumatic brain injury. And really, the Matt Hughes Project is really bringing light to the fact that there's many people that have had this silent illness and they haven't received the help that they have. So Matt had to learn how to walk again, speak again, have his balance, and it's been a long, treacherous journey. And he is really the flag bearer now for traumatic brain injury. So when we met and we got talking, we wanted to start our own charity, and how we're able to help him is through companies like Genesis Gold Group, and even another product we have, which is Prepper Bar. And you'll notice if you go to prepperbar.com, a percentage of our sales actually go to the Matt Hughes Project. And we're just kind of slowly bringing this online right now. And when they go to the Matt Hughes Project, they can put in their email and they can learn about Matt Hughes' story. Now, I went to the recent UFC with Matt Hughes in Las Vegas. It was at the Sphere. And I'm not sure if you're listening and you're a Matt Hughes fan or not, but I can tell you we went to the Sphere, and it was not planned very well on my part, because he was being mobbed and rushed by fans for photo, to the point where it got overwhelming. And he's looking at me and saying, "Let's get out of here." And we couldn't get out because there was no Ubers, no taxis. We were kind of stuck. So it was literally felt like we were pushing off a stampede of, like we were at some, who's that woman singer that everyone follows these days? Taylor Swift. I felt like, oh my God, we had all these Swifties running towards us. And I get it. Matt Hughes is a legendary figure. But his story is more interesting. And a lot of people want to know what happened to Matt Hughes. So we kind of tell this story through the Matt Hughes Project, through a documentary we filmed on what happened to Matt after that traumatic day and his long road to recovery, and how we're helping people forward moving. So it's something we're very passionate and very proud to get behind, and something hopefully I can bring Matt onto your show, and he can also tell you about what he's doing now and how his life has changed. And he's an incredible human being, one of the strongest people mentally and physically still that I know, and it's just an incredible story, and we're just very proud to be a part of this, traumatic brain and this Matt Hughes project charity where we could give back and also help people.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing stuff. Jonathan Rose, CEO of Genesis Gold Group. You can check them out by going to rumblegold.com. You can also just go to prepperbar.com, and there's a link there to the Matt Hughes Project. And you can learn more about the Prepper Bar. You can call 800-200-4653 and reach out to Jonathan, get the wealth protection kit for 2025. Jonathan, as always, it is a pleasure and a blessing having you on.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
See ya. The election is nearly upon us. Will there be any major October surprises yet to be unleashed? We will see. One thing people always ask me, because they know I've now apparently built up a reputation as being knowledgeable about gold and silver and retirement accounts and all that good stuff. People ask me which is going to be better for gold and silver, Trump or Kamala. And I said, look, number one, don't take that into consideration because either will be good for gold. Lest we forget, gold jumped up like 51% during Trump's first term. So don't say, oh, well, if Trump wins, it's going to be bad for gold. That's not true. That's just not true. There's a reason why analysts, even with Trump projected to win, there's a reason why analysts are still looking at gold hitting $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 per ounce, possibly in the future. Now, I'm not an economic advisor, so I'm not going to try to give you advice, but I will tell you this, that there are many, many Americans who are moving their wealth, their retirement, their life's savings to physical precious metals. And the one company that you should do that with, in my humble opinion, is Genesis Gold Group. This is a faith-driven company. Okay, I can't get around that. This is they are unabashedly faith-driven. They're unabashedly America first. These guys aren't rooting for Kamala, even though Kamala, yes, will Kamala be good for gold in the short term? You betcha. Will she be good for the economy long term? Absolutely not. Not even short term, not at all. So that's why they're like, you know what? We Trump. Believe it or not, a lot of the gold companies that these conservative show hosts are promoting, they back the Democrats. I know that sounds crazy, but they do because it behooves them when Democrats are in office. So check out Genesis Gold Group. You can go to my personal website for them at jdrgold.com. That's jdrgold.com. You'll get a free wealth protection kit, a gold guide, the definitive 2025 gold guide. You'll get all this stuff. So check it out, jdrgold.com.